conflict's a huge issue with black bears. You have it for any given reason. You have black bears that come into towns and they know when the garbage pickup schedule is, and they will
just like the grizzly know where the shot goes off.
Yep.
These guys know where the
They do. They know when garbage cans are put out, certain nights, and they'll go hit those neighborhoods. They'll hit bird feeders, chicken coops, barbecue, pet food that's left outside. People might have a fruit tree in their yard. And so there's a lot of measures to try and reduce those sources of conflict. So like where I went to school, we had programs to go out and pick fruit trees in people's yards. And then it was called the Great Bear Foundation. And we would press the apples into cider and then sell the cider or give the cider away or use it to raise funds and stuff like that. Tell people to bring in their stuff at night, or no bird seed during the summer, just keep it during the winter. And then agricultural wise, yeah, you do have some conflicts. You have bears that'll get into a chicken coop. And in some parts of the country, you have actually with tree production, with tree farms, you'll have bears that'll go and they will, destroy trees because they're trying to eat the camber in the tree, and they'll tear them up. And so, if you have a private company that owns land to try and log for lumber, that can be a huge, loss of money for the company. And so wildlife agencies here, we have entire biologists dedicated to trying to reduce human conflict. And usually the efforts are focused on the humans, because they're the ones that often cause it, or the ones that can help fix it. They're the ones that can put garbage cans in the garage, or when they're out camping, string their food up in a tree rather than keeping it in their tent or in their car, stuff like that. And from there, there's a few things that when you do have conflicts that are done, we have sometimes bears are, there's like a 3-strike rule where if they'll get picked up once, put an ear tag in them, and they might move them, 100 miles away in a different forest or something like that. And if they get in trouble 3 times, then the bear will be ultimately killed. That's usually not as popular with the public, but a lot of the research has shown that, kind of once there's a saying, a fed bear is a dead bear, that once they realize that they have easy sources of food by going in and hitting garbage and bird seed, then why would you do anything else when your entire, drive as an animal is to get as fat as possible so you can live through the winter? And so some of the research has shown that these bears, when you translocate them, you relocate them to new areas, they just go right back to where they came from. They go to a new area and get in trouble. Or it's kind of like me, picking you up, blindfolding you, putting you to sleep in Ireland, and then bringing you here to the US and just dropping you into a random city and say, okay, you need to go figure out where you can get food, where you can safely sleep, where you can, plus you have to deal with dangerous people who are already living there and don't like you. And so that's the kind of same thing with bears. They're not as territorial as, say, like wolves are, or hard boundary. Here's one pack, here's the other pack. They do overlap, but they don't like to be around each other. And so you do have mortality sources from there if you dump a bear in a random area and they don't have a home range already set up. So hunting can serve as a tool, and it does serve as a tool in some areas, because a lot of times, how many animals we want is either dictated by, do we believe the habitat can handle it, or is it socially acceptable, right? People might like to have black bears, but they may not want to have so many black bears where, it's the whole town has them all over the place. And so you can use hunting as a tool to try and keep populations at a certain level to where people find it socially acceptable to have that many because there's not so many where they're getting in trouble or they're, threatened or some factor. Now, one aspect that I think is ignored is that you could, with bears, you can keep them at a certain population level with hunting and may have no issues, or they could be at high population levels and have no issues with the public, with conflict. What happens, though, is when the bear's food source, so oftentimes in years of drought, you won't have berries produced or that many berries or not enough acorns, and bears prefer their natural foods. When you have droughts, you have failure in these different soft and hard mast crops. Bears will move out of those areas that are in a drought, and they will, start traveling wider range to try and look for food. And that's where we say the most conflict is because now they're going into town trying to look for food, and people have watered yards and lawns that might have, ornamentals that have food. They have garbage cans, they have bird seed, they have pet food. They might have fruit trees, they have gardens, they have chicken coops. And so it acts as they have no food out in the forest, and now there's food in the city. Well, they're going to start heading down into it, and that's where, even if you have a low abundance or a high abundance population, you're going to have conflict in those instances.